They should take it to 10.
This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Matt Hatfield on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Thanks for rocking out with us on this 13th day of March on the eve of Selection Sunday. It's 757 Saturday Sports Talk here on ESPN Radio 94.1, powered by Larry King Law. Call 757-INJURED for Larry King, LarryKingLaw.com. Matt Hatfield here with you. This time we're joined by a special guest, and, well, he simply goes by just one name.
How you doing, Norm? What do you know?
That's right. Norm Wood of the Daily Press and Virginian-Pilot joins us here. You can also follow him on Twitter at Norm Wood. I bet you get that a lot every time you walk into places, right?
It never gets old, Matt. Never gets old. But, yeah, I've heard it a time or two.
Sure. Never visited Cheers, though, have you?
I have.
Oh, you have?
Excellent. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I went. Have you been?
Many years ago. I don't even remember it. But
it's not as impressive in person as it is on TV.
Is it? Okay.
No, it looks massive on TV, and I remember, and I'm sure they were probably dealing with the studio there. I mean, obviously not on site, but the studio version that they created for that show is not exactly the same as the real bar. The bar is far smaller.
Oh, so you've been to the actual bar itself?
Yeah.
See, I went to one that wasn't the actual one. I went to one that was in a different location here in Virginia. I forgot where exactly it was. But so you went to the real? Okay, wow.
Yeah, the Cheers. We had that Cheers over there on Thimble Shoals in Newport News.
That's the one I think I went to many years ago. Yep.
Yeah, and that one is actually that used to be because now it's a Mexican restaurant, but that Cheers or the facsimile of Cheers that they created over there was far more similar to the studio version of the Cheers than the actual Cheers. So, yeah, I've been to the Cheers up there in Boston. I think it's on Commonwealth up there. It's pretty small.
Nice. You should have told them you should get some kind of free item because you have the same first name. But
exactly.
Right.
I don't know if they were ready to serve, I think, a 10-year-old or so at the time.
I don't think so. Well,
maybe a Shirley Temple. Probably could have got a free Shirley Temple.
There you go. You could get that. It's better than nothing. Hey, let's turn our attention now to the world of basketball. And instead
you
of
call me about Cheers?
No, we didn't call you about that. I mean, that's how we got started, though. But hey, instead of breaking down 2-2-1 presses and what this guy shoots from 3-point percentages, we're talking about protocols and tracing and all these things. A year later here with college hoops, and I know you covering the Hokies and Who's real close. I mean, you had two great games. Virginia Tech came up short against North Carolina in the ACC tournament, and then Virginia wins on the game winner by Reese Beekman to knock out the Orange. But then you basically, like the old wide world of sports, you go from the thrill of victory to the agony of defeat, and not a defeat in terms of loss, but UVA bounced from the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really, really tense week for Virginia, to say the least. I mean, they're in a situation now where they've essentially got to have 7 consecutive negative tests for the team, basically, and all the personnel. So it's going to be a lot of tension, a lot of stress, and essentially by 11 o'clock tonight, they have to inform the NCAA about whether they have at least five healthy players that have tested negative for the coronavirus. So that's sort of the deadline, to have at least 5. So a couple of big hurdles they still have to clear to get to next, Friday or Saturday, whenever they would play in the first round. So those are the first round dates. But it sounds like from the mock brackets and things that the tournament committee is putting together at this point, they're factoring in teams like Kansas and Virginia to play in the tournament, obviously until further notice. So, I know they're pretty. It sounds like anyway they're pretty optimistic in Charlottesville right now. I don't know if they're just trying to put on a good face and try to grin and bear it as they go into, again, what's going to be a really tense week. But we'll see. I mean, there's really we really will not know probably until Thursday or Friday next week.
Well, and you've been around Tony Bennett a good deal, Norm. I mean, would you put the level of concern at an all-time high for him? And then also AD Carla Williams, from the statements that have been put. I mean, what are you judging from what you're hearing from the Virginia camp right now and seeing and hearing? Is there a lot of concern, or has Tony Bennett still got that relaxed, laid-back mentality that he's always been known for here?
I mean, they're looking at 2 consecutive NCAA tournaments they may not be able to play in. I think they're pretty tense right now. I don't. Obviously, everybody didn't get to play last year, but this is going to put them in a pretty select group this year, as of now, that may not be able to play again, and obviously a team that could have been, one of the top 4 seeds, in some bracket, if they had proceeded and played well the rest of the ACC tournament. And now you'll wonder whether they'll even get seeded. I mean, I don't think that this hurts them that much, but it can't help, that's for sure. And I don't think they're in that, top 4 seed range anymore. They're probably 5 or 6 at best. Don't think they slide below that. But I do think there's an awful lot of tension from both Carla Williams and Tony Bennett. I mean, they're pretty private in terms of offering sort of access to themselves and the program, unless it's after a game, or leading into a tournament, or they don't provide an awful lot of access up there. But I can't imagine that they're real happy about what's going on right now, and they've got to feel a little bit of pressure moving forward here.
Well, and the crazy thing is, think about this, Norm. I mean, the ACC's regular season champ, though some will argue, well, they kind of backed into that because of Florida State losing to Notre Dame. Yeah. Well, guess what? Florida State showed how good it is the last couple nights winning those games against the Hokies and the Heels, which we'll get to. I mean, not against the Hokies, against the Heels last night, and they got the bye to get there. But I tell you what, the ACC regular season champ as a 5 seed, which it does seem like you're right. I mean, I think it's easier to almost replace or make some maneuvering if you put them there as opposed to on the 4 line. That's so hard to fathom, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. And I don't remember the last time we got to the end of the regular season and we had 3 ranked teams in the ACC. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think any of them were in the top 10. So, this is and to say it's a down year for the ACC is I think that kind of belies the fact that it's been maybe a season where there's been more parity in the league than I can remember. I mean, we went into this tournament thinking that there were 9 or 10 teams that could win the thing. I will toot my own horn here. I'm very proud of the fact that I have successfully predicted the championship game.
There you go.
And for the first time, I think, in my life, when it hasn't involved a 1 versus a 2 seed, anybody can do that. I'm sure I did that a few times, but 2 and a 4. I did not think Duke and North Carolina would make the final, either one, but and I also did not think that both Georgia Tech and FSU would make it to the final the way they did. Obviously, I mean, they did pretty easy paths considering they were the sort of the beneficiaries of the COVID situation. But and now you move into Sunday, and I guess you're probably looking at 7 teams that have a chance from the ACC to make the tournament. I mean, if you're, I guess you have to look at the one that is kind of the mystery right now is probably Louisville. I don't know what you do with those guys. They don't have a great quad 1 record. They bowed out of the tournament with a pretty bad loss to Duke, and so you essentially have the 6 that you're pretty much guaranteed. Clemson, Syracuse, UNC, Virginia Tech, Virginia, FSU, and Georgia Tech. So I think beyond that, I mean, I don't know if you have a 7th team that's sort of guaranteed or not, but I mean, this was a pretty competitive league. But the top of it just did not stand out.
No, it didn't. I mean, Lenardi's got, even at this moment, shockingly to me, 8. But, with you, I know Louisville's got one of the last 4 buys in his bracket, but since Malik Williams went back out, they're just a different team. They're not quite as strong. And we saw that against Duke in the tournament, being unable to contain Mark Williams inside. You can just see when a team is missing a key piece or two, it can be even multiple pieces in some of these teams. Look at Villanova here this week, losing a couple games. It just really changes the whole scope of things.
It does, and you're right. That would have been a really nice piece for Louisville to have, and to see him go down again after, I guess, 3 games back on the floor after missing essentially almost all of last year, or most of last year, with a broken foot.
Mm-hmm.
That's devastating for them, and I think worst of all, it looked like in that last game back before he got hurt, he was really starting to put it back together again, and it kind of turned the corner. So, that really hurt. And you know what? I was really, and I know we can't. I wish we could. Look, it would have been really fun to see Mark Williams last night against the big kid from FSU. I mean, that would have been a blast, because it would have been 2 traditional 7-footers going at each other. We're not talking about guys that like Jay Huff that can pop out to the 3-point line and take those kinds of shots. Just, old school 7-footers banging on each other underneath the basket. You don't see that very much in basketball, period, anymore, pro or college. That would have been a fun matchup to watch.
For sure. We're talking with Norm Wood of the Daily Press, Virginian-Pilot. Read his great work in the team over there, the local sports section there. Get yourself a copy of the Virginia-Pilot Daily Press, dailypress.com, pilotonline.com, and follow Norm on Twitter at Norm Wood. It's 757 Saturday Sports Talk here on ESPN Radio 94.1. As we get you set for the ACC Championship later today, it's going to be the Yellow Jackets, Georgia Tech, taking on the Seminoles of Florida State. UVA and Virginia Tech certainly looking on to move on to the NCAA Tournament. UVA keeping their fingers crossed for that announcement later tonight there. And in Virginia Tech's case, they fall in the ACC Tournament, Norm. But before I even get to the Hokies here, has there been kind of amongst your colleagues and people there at the ACC Tournament, last year it gets canceled there. John Swofford, the commissioner, comes out. Basically, we're not playing today after we heard they were going to play, and everything in the whole sports world shuts down. But there's so much anticipation this year. We get some close games. Great finish with UVA and Syracuse. Tech's locked up in a good one with the Heels. And, Miami, what a story they've been with Jim Larinaga as a 13th seed to get that close against Georgia Tech after the wins in consecutive days. But Duke and then Virginia, has it taken some of the steam out of the tournament there these last, couple of days? And now you got people even asking, I think yesterday even, you told me if I'm wrong, are we going to even play the rest of this tournament? Some wondering if they're going to opt out even.
Yeah. Well, I think what's really taking the steam out of it is the fact that you still, look, there are 3,000 or 3,100 people in the building, and it still feels like it's empty. It's just a cavern here. 22,000 or so. And it's just, there's just not much atmosphere in the building, and there's nothing they can do about that, clearly. But it's odd to get this deep into the postseason and to see some games that sort of have a little bit of a postseason feel, but there is still sort of a organized scrimmage type look to it. It's just without the enthusiasm and the crowd rising to its feet and that extra element. It is odd. It's also been a little strange, I think, that all of this has taken place with the tournament and the COVID tests and all that, and we still have not heard much from Jim Phillips, the ACC's new commissioner. That's a little surprising. I think we expected to hear a little bit from him. He's really been very tight-lipped since taking over. I guess February 3rd, I think, was when he officially took over. He's talked with the ACC network, but he hasn't granted any interviews to anybody else. So I thought this might be the opportunity to do that, and he sort of, he released a statement, and that's all we got after the Duke and UVA situations of the last few days. So, there was, I think, a little bit of question about whether or not, there would be some, whether they would move forward. I know Roy Williams talked about, opting out of last night's game. At least he talked with an assistant coach about that, and before he decided to move forward. Leonard Hamilton was full speed ahead the entire time. Those guys have a chip on their shoulder, man. That's the team I picked to win the tournament coming in, just because I thought they'd be, a little bit ornery coming off of last week's loss to Notre Dame, obviously, and also feeling like they had some unfinished business after last year when they were sort of they had Final Four potential. I really did think that going into that ACC tournament, and then kind of have everything, the world stop spinning there from a sports perspective. I thought they'd really have a chip on their shoulders, and they had everybody back too for the most part from that team. So, there was some rumblings about maybe the tournament the last couple of days would be in jeopardy, but they quickly got squashed.
Yeah, I'm with you on FSU. If Scotty Barnes and that crew comes to play, brings their A game, they're good enough to be playing beyond the first weekend or two here in this NCAA tournament and be a team that gets itself into April here. Last two for you, Norm. Thank you for coming on here. Virginia Tech, as we size them up here, I think one of the latest bracket projections has them in the 8-9 game against Missouri. Are they kind of hoping for maybe even a lower seed, like a 10, so they avoid that second round with the 1, be it a Baylor or Gonzaga, whatever bracket they were to be in? And secondly, did North Carolina kind of show that's the team they don't want to see, that type of matchup where someone has the size inside because they're kind of undersized outside of Alume, and they're better in one of those games where it's kind of a 3-point up and down type of game. Give me your thought on those two things with the Hokies.
That's a great point about the 8-9, and I don't think anybody wants to be in that spot, especially if you're going to be in that side with Gonzaga or Baylor, for sure. And I know they're sort of on the brink of that 9-10 now, it seems like. I think they're closer to it. Let me put it this way: they're closer to a 10 than they are an 8 right now. And if it went that direction, they'd certainly want to be a 10, like you said. I agree. There is certainly something to be said about the fact that they do not have some size. They do not have size beyond Keve Aluma, and that's been a real issue for them when they have played bigger teams. But they didn't get that test until this past week, or this week, should I say, because they got to avoid the UNC game. They missed out on Florida State twice during the season, and obviously they didn't have to play at UVA, all because of COVID issues within and outside their program. So, they played 3 games in a 33-day stretch. With that loss to UNC being that third game, I still don't think that Mike Young really knows what he has with this team at this point of the year. And that's got to be a pretty scary feeling because at this point of the year, you obviously want to know, and I don't think he does. I mean, look, they're not going to have Jalen Cone coming off the bench, so they have a very thin bench right now as far as presence is concerned. They got outscored 36-8 in points off the bench against UNC. Hunter Couture has been really cold coming off the bench. That's a guy they've got to get going. They don't have great depth in the backcourt. Again, since Cone is out, look, Tyrese Radford is great. Naheem Aline can hit some shots. Lavissa Beatty has as much ball control and on-ball defensive skills as anybody in the ACC, but they can't get any of those guys in foul trouble, and they're going to have to play big minutes throughout the tournament if they're going to have success. So, Justin Mutz, I don't know if you're going to get that kind of performance from him every single night, but he had a really special night against UNC. Looks like he's certainly didn't have any kind of rust coming off the break. They had, I guess, an 11-day break coming back into the ACC tournament. But Keve Aluma wasn't sharp, and like you said, he had really tough matchup in the post. He played well defensively, I thought, for probably about 25, 30 minutes of that game, and then they just kind of ran out of gas. You could see the air coming out of the balloon in the last 10 or 11 minutes of that game, which was not unexpected. We've seen that so many times from teams coming off of COVID breaks this year, especially in the ACC, other than FSU. FSU is the only team that's really been able to conquer that kind of break. So, they've got a lot of questions still going into the NCAA tournament, questions at the wrong time of year.
Indeed, but Mike Young has done a wonderful job with that program. I mean, it's amazing that they're even in the conversation. I mean, given what that roster was when he got there, it's remarkable. They get that type of game from Mutz again, that they could be in business and have a chance to advance in that NCAA tournament. Well, thank you so much, Norm. A last one for you. Are you going to be covering an NCAA tournament game, or are you going to be watching it from home? What's kind of the assignment for you? Do you know yet, or?
Yeah, unfortunately, I will not be traveling to Indy.
Okay.
I will be covering all the games remotely, obviously, for sure, and I'll have access to players and coaches. I'll actually have the same access everybody on site has I'll just be, several hundred miles away there in Newport News covering the games. But we'll have full coverage of the games. And like I said, we'll have access to players and coaches, chat with them after the games, but we'll not be on site.
Not a bad thing, because when you get all your work done, it gives you a chance to pop on Hulu and watch an episode of Cheers.
That's exactly right. Great way to bring it around, Matt. Good job.
Tried to. Well, enjoy the rest of the tournament, my friend, and as well as the NCAA tournament coming up. You stay safe, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me. Have a great rest of your weekend.
You got it. That is Norm Wood, the one and only from the Daily Press and Virginia-Pilot. Read his work, pilotonline.com, dailypress.com. He does a great job. He and the staff over there. We will take a timeout and come back with some more college basketball. You'll even hear from Joe Lunardi giving you some more bracketology talk. And I got a bone to pick with him. You'll find out why coming up on ESPN Radio 94.1.